Hi, and welcome to Nicole Reacts, a show in which I, Nicole, react to online marketing gurus that I find on the internet. My qualifications for snark and commentary are that I've owned a marketing company for 15 years, in that time having worked with hundreds of clients on marketing strategy and implementation. So I have a lot of knowledge about marketing, but also experience in marketing. You know who we haven't talked about in a while? Old white guys. That's right. They dominated the marketing space as the thought leaders for literally decades. And while it's nice that we have other people emerging and definitely needed, the people who are most highly respected tend to be the old white guys, among which is one of the people that we're talking about today. So Philip Kolter, who I never heard of until very recently. I don't even know how I found this video that we're going to react to, but he is a marketing author, consultant, and professor. He has written over 80 books about marketing. He popularized the term marketing mix, which is this idea of an approach to marketing that includes like product, price. Hold on. I gotta look it up. There's 4 P's: product, price, place, and promotion. There we go. So he didn't create the term, but he popularized it. He has also helped create the field of social marketing. And I guess by many people, he's considered the father of modern marketing. So why I haven't heard of him, I don't know. I mean, the name sounds familiar, but I haven't read any of his books. I've never heard him speak or anything like that. I think probably it's because he is older. He's 91 now. So probably around the time I was listening to most marketing podcasts and reading most marketing books. I'm not saying I still don't do that, but there was a period where I was very intensely into it. He probably was very much retired and not making the podcast rounds, not putting out new books and things like that. So I found a very long video today. And I've avoided reacting to it because it is so long, but God bless Ben. He decided he was going to go to the big city and do a grocery shop for us so that I could have the entire afternoon to record videos. I appreciate you, Ben. Thanks for bringing us back some food. So this is called How to Develop a Marketing Strategy by Philip Kolter. It is almost 2 hours long. So this is going to be like a 4-hour recording. I've got some coffee. I've got a whole afternoon, theoretically, in the house by myself. So hopefully there'll be minimal animal interactions here. It looks like it was uploaded 2 years ago, but we know that in YouTube land, just because the upload date was recent does not mean the video recorded was recent. So I'm putting that caveat out here. Let's learn from the father of modern marketing how to create our own marketing strategy.
Let me share with you how we are going to look at 4 topics. First, there are many challenges for Italy. Secondly, you have to build a good marketing and sales organization. Third, we have to move from only doing traditional marketing, 30-second TV commercials, mass marketing. We have to move from that to using the digital media. We are in a digital age, and I do not want to eliminate 30-second commercials. They're very useful for building a brand, but we must also do social marketing, social media marketing. And fourth, I want to talk about marketing 3.0 and social responsibility.
So before continuing, I thought that I would check the description below the YouTube video and see if there was any context, because he mentioned something about marketing in Italy, and I was like, okay, maybe he's in Italy. And while the show notes are really good with good detailed timestamps, there really isn't any context as to what group was presented to when this recording happened, at least that I could tell. Maybe editing Nicole will add something in on the screen or in the notes about the context of this video, but I currently do not know that context. Also, a quick thing is that, you know, when you make text on an image, make sure that there's enough contrast for this to be readable. I'm not sure if this would pass a readability test currently of what's on the screen, but we'll let him keep talking.
Now, let's start with this idea of the challenges. And I'm using a picture of a piece of glass. I happen to be a major collector of glass, big kinds of glass. And the reason I was attracted to this is the artist managed to show the earth, and inside the earth is a tree, and yet the planet is fragile. It's delicate. We have to treat it right so that trees continue to grow and so on.
Okay. Kind of random, but also as someone who is married, formerly married to a glass blower, that's a really difficult piece. That's crazy. That's a lot of talent that glass blower has. Okay, you see how white on the red is a lot more readable? I think hopefully the formatting will be like this from now on.
The challenges are many. You know them. What are you going to do about globalization? Is Italy sufficiently globalized?
Okay, maybe he used glass too because Italy is a big glass blowing spot. We're clearly in Italy. We're clearly in Europe somewhere, but likely in Italy based on him bringing up Italy twice in 2 minutes.
Are you a country that just wants to do business with your own businesses in Italy? How many of you have gone to China? How much business are you doing with China, exporting and even opening maybe a small factory in China or India? The idea is always go to the countries that are growing. Don't go to countries that are not growing. Don't go to countries that don't have money. Always go to where the growth is. And don't go to many of them. Focus. Make Italy a well-known name and its products well-known in maybe 3 countries that are going to be your future, and so on. Chindia, by the way, is just a made-up word for the 2 nations of China and India. There's a lot of...
It's weird to combine them. Like, they're 2 very different places. I get that they're 2 large population centers, but I don't know. I think this is interesting, but also I thought this is more about branding. Maybe he's getting into that, but he's just laying the groundwork of why branding is important. So
regional work, because you're part of the European Union. So you have to, sometimes you're angry at the European Union. It has its rules. But just in the same way, my state of Illinois, where the city of Chicago is, doesn't like the rules maybe from the federal government. So there's always a conflict between the local, the regional, and the national. And you have to live with that. The internet and social media is the nature of the civilization we're in now. It's a new civilization. It's a civilization that allows people to communicate with so many other people. Connectedness. It turns out that I will meet a person who nobody knows much about, and he will tell me he has 1,000 followers and maybe 700 fans. The media, the digital media allows you to connect with everyone else in the world. In fact, the smart marketers try to identify who has the biggest network. If I want to reach a lot of people with my product, and I get the...
So I get what he's saying here. We all want to connect with people with large networks. But I think for me, more importantly than connecting with a company or a partner with a large network is connecting with someone with a good network, a high quality network. So for example, if you look up an Instagram account, a large Instagram account on Social Blade, or you use one of those websites that shows you how many fake or inactive followers an account has, you'll see that some very large accounts have abysmal engagement rates and a high percentage of sort of fake or inactive followers. So it's easy to kind of fake a large audience if you want to. And I say easy in that it just takes money. Like you can just buy followers, right? But really what you want to do as a business, if you want to grow your networks, is to connect with people and businesses that have engaged and active social networks. I hope that makes sense, but maybe he'll get into that. And this is just an introduction of the idea that you can expand your network because you're connecting with people online who have large and different networks than you do.
Person who has a big network to like my product, it goes around the world. If I could get Lady Gaga to say something about my book, the world will hear about it, right? 40 million people. So that's the nature of the new society.
But is Lady Gaga influencing what we're reading, right? Now, if Lady Gaga talked about me as a songwriter or my art or something, I feel like that would go a lot further with her audience. But if she's like, oh, I'm reading this book, I don't know, this book about marketing by this Philip Kolter guy, I don't know if that would necessarily be the best endorsement. I'm not saying it wouldn't do anything. I'm just saying that if he could afford one person, I'm not sure Lady Gaga is the exact right person to be recommending his book.
But it's one of hyper competition. You've got to watch your competitors. And it is a case where if you have a successful new product, it's likely to be copied very fast. It's likely that since it's successful, I'll copy it. For example, yesterday and today, I rode in this new car called the Tesla. That is a fantastic car. It can drive itself. The driver can go to sleep.
Can't they though? Like, I feel like that's a liability thing that you probably shouldn't fall asleep. But I don't know. If you're a Tesla owner, let me know if that is part of their marketing or promise when you buy one.
Someone's going to try to compete with that. Someone's going to say it could be Toyota, it could be Nissan, it could be Fiat. They're going to. So how long does a new product last and remain popular? Much shorter now. Things are copied very fast. Many products seem to be similar. Some markets, it doesn't matter where you buy your salt. The brand doesn't matter for, let's say, some applesauce, if there's 3 brands, or the brand of soap. So how do I make a choice? And my answer is, if I gave you an index you could look up on the internet, and it said the Good Company Index. And by good company, I mean a company that pays good wages to its people and a company that practices sustainability. And you don't know if you should buy the soap from company A or B. Should you buy it from Procter & Gamble or from Unilever? Look up my Good Company Index when it's available. It may say that company A is much better as a citizen than company B. That means that more people buying the soap will buy it from the good company, and the companies not so good have to change. They also have to become good. So I'm trying to popularize the idea that the market itself will take care of bad companies by creating information about what the good companies are. Then you got to be a good company too. Okay. The next point is the retail.
So I just paused this to look at another tab if the Good Company Index exists. I tried first with Philip Kolter's name and nothing is coming up. So I just typed in Good Company Index. There seems to be something on O'Reilly.com where you can do some searches and there's a free trial. But when it lists the names of people who are, I guess, collaborating on this, Philip Kolter isn't in it. So I don't know. Maybe editing Nicole will be smarter than recording Nicole and be able to figure this out. But right now, it sounds like this thing was going to exist and doesn't necessarily exist right now when I'm recording this in April of 2023. Let's continue.
Retail world is changing. The big problem is, should I even have a store or should I just sell online? Look what happened to bookstores. Many of them have closed. People can get from Amazon any book right now in 1 minute by downloading a book you want. So many businesses have been destroyed by the digital world.
Well, the other thing too is I'm really curious, and maybe I'll find something when I'm editing this, how many sales are physical books versus digital books. I still think digital books are behind physical books. But yeah, I think Amazon has a way of buying books that can undercut booksellers. And what I've noticed is booksellers have been sort of turning toward, doing events, maybe having like a cafe or community building kind of aspect, or they've been going into like also having other gift items besides books in their stores. So it's more of a, not just a bookstore, but it's like a little bit more of a bookstore slash gift shop. Those are kind of the two things like I see when I go into bookstores that are continuing on with the physical presence. But yeah, I still think that the fact that Amazon just has a large catalog of physical books, I think, is what makes it attractive. Because I don't think ebooks are the majority of what is being sold. Just my opinion.
And
I'll look and see if it's true after this.
we have to look at what's the future of shopping centers. Some of them are in trouble now. What about Walmart? Will Walmart take over the world?
No, Walmart's not going to take over the world. They've had like 50 years to take over the world, and they haven't. The reality is there's a lot of big box stores besides Walmart. There's some that are more general, like Target. There's some that are more specialized, like an IKEA. But the other thing is that there's still a need for small businesses. And the mall that is in the town that I'm in is going through a revitalization process. And knock on wood, when you're watching this video, we have signed the lease and we're moving into it because it is such a dynamic rebuild of that space right now. There's a tattoo artist, there is an acupuncture person, there's a gym, there's a laundromat, there's a diner, there's an animal groomer, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. So I think the mall is not going to be an indoor building where we walk around to different stores, but it might be a collection of businesses in a physical location that can share things like parking or can have things like electric car chargers and other amenities that people want because we're spreading out that cost as sort of a group of businesses in one location. So I think if malls and shopping centers are willing to be creative about it, I think that they can survive the next iteration. And the guy who's leading it up, the guy who bought the building, he's a real visionary. He's an architect. And when I saw that he bought the building, I was like really hoping we could move in there. And yeah, I think we're going to be taking literally the last available spot in the building. So really excited about that. Anyway, I think there's a place for malls. I think it's different than it was in the 1980s. And malls that are willing to think that way are going to survive.
We have some retail experts, and they are available to help retailers adjust themselves to the new threats and so on. Media, so much more media than we've ever had before. You've got to be using Facebook. You've got to be using Google. You've got to be using YouTube, LinkedIn, and so on. And then the environment. Is my company hurting the environment or helping the environment? And then recognize the main point is consumers are smarter. They can learn whatever they want to learn about you. They can look up your website. They can see other opinions. There are many polls that rank companies. Let's say if I'm going to buy an automobile, I'm going to look up what other people have said about that automobile on the internet. And the Polk, there's a whole rating system, and I could even learn what I ought to pay for that car. So the result is a certain kind of problem, and the problem is called slow economic growth. So let me tell you something about that. When times were good, when there were factories full of people making things, the people in the factories usually had a good income, an income that could support them and their wife and their children, and have a good life and afford a vacation and so on. What's happening now is factories are not found in most places anymore.
Why is that?
They're found mostly in China.
Why is that though?
China became the factory of the world, just like India became the office of the world, because India was supplying us with many
Excuse the dog bark there.
telephone and digital services for accountants and so on. And furthermore, factories are changing from having 1,000 people to having one person running a factory and a dog to wake up the person in case he doesn't see the dials. In other words, automation of the factory is proceeding very fast, raising a question: will there be enough jobs in Italy for the number of people in Italy? Will there be enough jobs in the United States for the number of workers?
If we look at the difference between the CEO pay and the average worker pay, it has been increasing at a ridiculous rate for the last 30 to 40 years. And in that time, if we look at the percentage of wealth that, the middle class, and the middle class ranging from, poverty line to like someone who makes $500,000 a year in, Los Angeles or something. If we look at the owned wealth of that group of people, it was 30 something percent like 20 years ago, and now it's like 8%. So the money is being hoarded by these very, very rich people and companies. So when we ask ourselves why the average worker can't make enough money that they can afford a 2-bedroom rental apartment in their city, we have these very systemic economic issues to deal with. Now, I don't know what they are in Italy. I can only speak for, being in the US and having lived in the US my whole life, except for my 6-month study abroad. But like, these are very real problems that it's hard to overcome as both a business owner and as a business trying to exist in an economy, like a small business. So I'm really curious. He's kind of dancing around this, and probably he kind of has to because of the people who are sitting in this room. I'm guessing some of the people sitting in this room are billionaires who own very large companies. So he's kind of dancing around like, oh, well, factories are now somewhere else. Why is that? Who made the decision to move the factory there? Right? Who made the decision to move the factories overseas? Who made the decision to, stagnate wages while inflation increases? Who made these decisions? It wasn't the average worker, Anyway, sorry, when stuff like this happens, I just get really worked up and sad and annoyed and pissed off, and I don't really know what to do with that energy. So thanks for listening.
No one has the answer.
Tax billionaires. Tax the billionaires. Tax the people who are not being taxed. Use the money to fund very expensive things like healthcare. Make sure everyone is cared for at a base level in our society. The money is there. It is just being hoarded. There is more than enough money to solve these problems.
You're going to have to be either a pessimist or optimist about the future of work. Because if there's going to be a job shortage as the world problem, we're going to have to learn to share the jobs.
Yeah, we could share jobs, sure. We also could just understand that as a society, we have enough money to take care of everybody at a basic level. So we could choose to do that. And then that would kind of free up everyone's stress and economic energy to be doing more useful things, whether that was, being in the traditional workforce or creating products and services as an entrepreneur, or that was taking care of people who need to be taken care of, like sick people or elderly people or children, people who can't or shouldn't be working, right? Anyway.
France, as a country, has already worked on that by saying, well, the job shouldn't be 40 hours a week, it should be 35 hours a week. Or maybe your work should be 3 days a week. But how do we pay for?
Well, we can think of a different way to pay, can't we? If we can think of a different way to work, we can think of a different way to pay people.
Or less work. So I don't have answers, but it's a problem.
I don't have the exact solutions either, but I definitely have some ideas.
Now, so the world is divided into pessimists and optimists. A pessimist who's asked about the future growth of the GDP, the gross domestic product, they are saying that we will not go back to 4% growth in Europe that we used to have, or China's 10% growth, which they had for some years, that in fact it's going to be slow growth.
Well, less of us are having kids, right? And if our work is being increasingly undervalued economically, yeah, I'm sure GDP is going to go down. Also, though, it's like, we have IQ as a way to measure someone's intelligence, right? Like as a society. But we also know that's not a very complete measurement, right? So GDP is a measurement, but maybe it's just not a complete measurement of how a country is doing economically. What do I know? But just an idea to throw out there.
One of the top economists named Larry Summers. Larry was the head of Harvard University. He was the president of Harvard. In a recent statement, he said that the growth will be 1 or 2% for the next 50 years. That's very depressing. That's very depressing.
Is it? Do we need to be making more money, or do we have enough money and just need to distribute it better?
And another economist at my university, Northwestern University, actually looked at all the numbers and said pretty much the same thing for the United States. It won't go back to 4 or 5% growth. It will be about 0.5%. On the other hand, pick up a book called Abundance. Abundance. And the book is written by a very brilliant person named Peter Diamandis. Peter Diamandis is the one who created the famous X Prize. If you know about the X Prize, it is given to anyone who solves a major problem in the world. For example, if you can make an automobile that could go 100 miles on 1 gallon of gas, you will win $10 million. If you could clean up an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico within hours of it happening, as opposed to weeks and weeks of oil spreading through the Gulf, you will win $10 million. He's the man who created that idea, and he also created a new university called Singularity University in San Francisco.
I'm really curious about this Larry guy's background. It's a good idea to give prizes for people developing interesting things. I think it's really good to put money behind that. But is this person, I don't know, smarter than an economist? I don't know. I don't know who this Larry person is, but yeah, I guess he's an optimist, though.
The purpose of Singularity University is so different than any other university. You go there for training in nanotechnology, robotics, artificial intelligence, networks and sensors. The courses are highly technical to make you prepared to innovate. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you go to Singularity University, and you'll meet so many other people who also want to innovate better solutions. In his book called Abundance, which he just published, he predicts a world where we will end poverty in 20 years. There will
Oh, Larry. I hope you're right.
be no poverty. Food will be abundant because of
What percentage of food is thrown away every day? Large corporations, you see it posted all the time. People are being made to incinerate food that could be eaten by somebody else because corporations don't want to give it away for free. I don't know when this was recorded, but I don't know. Post-pandemic, I guess I just have a lot more thoughts and feelings about how people will behave in these situations. And having gone through this worldwide disaster that we just all went through, it does not give me the hope in humanity that I hoped that it would. I'll be honest with you.
the ability to grow the yields. Instead of getting 10 bananas from a tree, you'll get 50 bananas from a tree.
Sure.
The water will be desalinized so that water is abundant everywhere. So
Isn't that process really expensive though?
his picture is one of great optimism for the future, but it's nothing we can settle right now. So let me continue.
So I know at the beginning he said like you're either an optimist or a pessimist. I think I'm a little bit of both. I don't think all of these things are going to happen, but I do think some of them will. And I think that as a society, we're getting collectively fed up with how things are right now. And something is going to change, but I don't know what that is. I don't think any of us do.
Continue. Let me look at the following questions. Here's the first one. And if you have a pencil and you come from a company, use this as a putting down a number after each of these 9 things. There are 9 items, and give yourself up to 5 points per item. So if you have a 5, a 5, a 5, 9 times, you will get a score of 45. So for your company, my first question is your company good at finding new opportunities? Now, the fact is, even 2 people in your company may disagree. If I were to go into your company, I would look at what opportunities did you discover in the last 5 years? What new things did you do? Second question, are you using marketing research and marketing analytics? And do you have big data? Because we're at a time now where the internet permits us to know much about every person in the world. That's called big data. But just having big data is not enough because you got to dig through it. You've got to do market analytics so you can learn and get insight from the big data. So how many points do you want to give to your company for number 2? The third, have you innovated anything? Are you pretty good, pretty successful at innovating? What about communication? Do you think your company has a good image, that it's clear and powerful? The brand is well understood or not? Give yourself anywhere from 1 point, if there's very poor communication, all the way to 5 points. The next thing, do you run your sales force efficiently? Do you have a sales force? Do you manage the cost of the sales force very carefully? For example, my ideal company in Salesforce management is called Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com is such a powerful company, and it creates the kind of data that would help you know how to manage your sales force by what each salesperson is doing during the day and so on.
Yeah, I worked with one company for a while that was using Salesforce as its platform. They had one full-time employee whose job was to manage Salesforce. There is a lot to setting up and maintaining it. And I know they have a lot of training on their website and stuff. And I know there is a lot of data back there and it is very powerful, but it's almost like you need somebody who's going to be the Salesforce specialist at your company if you are going to use a tool that robust. And in case you're curious, I scored myself a 31. I didn't score myself a 5 on anything because I don't know. I feel like there's room for improvement for me in a couple of things. There's a lot of 4s on here though. So I'll be curious what my 31 score is going to mean.
Next, are you running good distribution channels? Have you created any new distribution channels? Remember, in the old days, all you did at a gas station was to get some fuel. Today, the gas station is a money-making store, and the gas doesn't make that much money, it's the store. So how do you find new channels of distribution? Would you say you have a well-thought-out marketing strategy? Would you give your strategy a 5 or a 4 or a 3 or a 2 or a 1? Are you well organized for marketing? Do you have a good CMO, Chief Marketing Officer? Do you have a good, does he or she have good respect from the other officers, from the Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Manufacturing Officer?
Clearly, this is for a group of large companies, the way that these questions are, but Yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel like our marketing strategy and implementation is pretty good. I think there's room for improvement, but I think most of that is, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me that I need to get better at. So,
And then finally, does your company practice some corporate social responsibility and so on? Now, I'm not going to ask you to turn this in. If we had that, sometimes you're in an audience which has a number thing. Everyone has a number, and then we could show how many of you had 45 points, how many had 44. So we're not going to do that. But I would worry if I am you, and your score is like 20 out of 45. That means you better go back to read the books on marketing and so on. Okay.
if you're low, just go and read a bunch of books, guys.
But let's take this and move on.
Okay.
Someone might say,
You're not going to like tell us, like, okay, if you're below 20, it's a problem. You're not going to like give it any more breakdowns than that. Come on. What does my 31 mean?
we're an old industry. We are the coffee. We make coffee. There's no opportunity for us in the coffee industry. Well, Starbucks didn't believe there's no opportunity. It's an old product, but they created it as your home. It's your third home. I mean, when your first home is your family, the second is the office, the third is Starbucks.
I think he's implying the third place idea, which is that you have your first place and your second place. Your first place is home, the second place is where you work, and the third place is where you interact. So sometimes these are like companies, like a coffee shop, right? But sometimes they're also just like public spaces, like it could be a library, or it could be like, I don't know, a co-working space, that kind of thing. So yeah, also these graphics. Oof, I really just want to fix these slides for him because I know he's a smart guy, but these slides are just, I don't know, they're kind of lackluster, but
Pleasant. Take your computer there, sit there all day, meet with your friends at Starbucks. Now, what about Zara? You all know you are to be complimented on a company as strong and interesting as Zara, changing its merchandise every 2 weeks, which says to a young lady, if she doesn't buy what she sees now that she likes, it won't be there 2 weeks later.
ooh, fast. That's fast fashion. Change it every 2 weeks. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
And what about Zappos? Zappos is a firm run by a man called Tony Hsieh, and his job is to produce happiness, not sell shoes. If he's selling shoes, it's to make you happier, but he wants his employees to be happier. He wants his suppliers to be happier. He uses the word happify. He's in the business of happifying, making people happy. And by the way, if you buy a pair of shoes from Tony, and shoes are an old business, what's new
I mean, you're in Italy. It's shaped like a boot.
is he will give a free pair of shoes to a poor person because you bought shoes from him. This is a new idea, by the way. It's also being practiced by a company that makes eyeglasses. When you buy a pair of eyeglasses from them, some poor person who could not afford having a pair of glasses will get one. Well, I'm going to buy from that company. I'm going to buy from Zappos. So it's a new idea for you to think about. Now, what about new industries? We just proved that old industries could be redone and vitalized. Yes, software, or many young people don't want to work for a big company. They want to create an app or software or a game. And robotics is coming more and more. I am waiting for someone to invent a robot butler. So I say to the butler at home, get me some coffee. He walks and gets coffee for me. I say, clean the living room. He pushes the broom or the vacuum. So Japan is working on that, by the way. Japan has a butler now. It can't do everything, but And there's a movie that just came out about a woman that was created. The movie's called Ex Machina. The woman actress is not a real woman, but looks like a real woman. She is basically a robot with all the electronics. So what world of innovation do you want to go into? What about bioengineering? What about 3D printing? What people are saying now is every home that has a Hewlett-Packard printer will also have a 3D printer. And it will be used to make whatever you want to make. It could be a beautiful vessel. It could be a very complicated thing.
Okay, in another tab, I just looked up the movie that he's referencing, Ex Machina, came out in 2014. So he said that this movie just came out. So maybe this talk is from 2014. So it's almost 10 years old at this point. So sorry about that. Again, uploads, it's so hard to tell when a video was actually recorded, but I thought that little timestamp was a helpful way to figure out when. So now we know.
They say that the auto industry is making its parts using 3D printing. They say that if you're...
my boyfriend has a 3D printing business. The 3D printers are literally about 5 feet in this direction in a closet right next to me. So the 3D printer being in your home and being able to make stuff is a reality in my life, but it's because Ben knows how to use programs to, I guess, make things and then print them. I don't know how to do that. So I don't know if it's common knowledge, but it seems like it's a little bit more common than it was 9 years ago to have a 3D printer, because I have one in my own. Actually, there's two. There's two in that. There might even be 3. I don't know. I don't go into that closet because I don't want to mess anything up.
You're lost on an island. There's 2 things you want. One is to have your iPhone, if you're lost on an island. The other is to have a 3D printer, because the 3D printer will allow you to make a boat or to print, so to speak, something that's missing. So it's a world of new opportunities. Are there new opportunities in other countries? Yes.
Of course there are.
Asia comes to mind first. I must be selling things in Asia. Eventually, it will be Africa. Eventually, the next big place is when some countries in Africa, where the wages are lower, even China will lose factories to places in Africa. So Italy has a history in Africa. Italy, of course, went into Abyssinia. You had a colony in Africa, and so on and so forth. So watch that. Are there new opportunities for companies that could lower the price of something? Yes. Let's look at what Tata did, Mr. Tata. He said, it's a very interesting story in India. He would notice motorcycles with a father driving it, a mother behind him, and children, 5 or 6 family people on one motorcycle, and accidents happening, killing a whole family. And he said, it shouldn't be a motorcycle, it should be a cheap car. Let's make a car for $2,500. And for 8 years, they worked on the Nano car. You could buy one. And the Nano car, I think it's $2,500. It didn't succeed as well as he expected because it's really a covered motorcycle. The problem is people who had $2,500 in India wanted to move up a little more and get a little better car. So the Nano got them excited about owning a car, but there was the next level, and they ended up buying the next level. But look, we used to say at MIT, eventually a computer will only cost $100. No one believed it. And now you can get and basically you got the computer for less than $100. It's right in my pocket. So sneakers.
He must be implying a cell phone is cheaper than $100. Again, we know now that we're in the future that cell phones haven't necessarily gotten cheaper. They've gotten more sophisticated in what they offer. They have more memory and all of that. So we're definitely paying for that as consumers. I don't know. Like my phone, probably everybody's phone, like you get a discount, right? When you sign up with the carrier, you can slowly pay it off over time. Or they'll be like, this phone is $900, but we'll take off $600 and now it's $350 or something. Yeah, so I don't know about the $100 phone. I don't know what kind of phone he's got for $100, but I know mine was more than that.
For $1, something to wear for your feet. So ask yourself, whatever business you're in, is there a market in driving the price even lower, making it more affordable for more people? And India is the country to watch. India is the one that is smart about how to bring down the cost of normal products. And then there's the luxury market, which is your market.
The luxury market is your market. So we're in Italy. We're talking to companies that are large enough to have a CMO and a CFO, and they're in the luxury market. Okay. We're going to get little breadcrumbs throughout. I'm just gathering them for us here.
There are other things you can do at the upper end of the market. And you have the advantage of such a following in greatly designed products made of great leather and fabrics. And you used to have the company Olivetti. Olivetti was a wonderful company at the time. It was one to be proud of because they paid the workers well. They gave them housing. I'm sorry, it didn't move fast enough into computers. It went into computers, but it was not successful in moving from typewriters to computers. But the point I want to make is some of you are making products that should be going after the market that is the rich market. The rich people have so much money. In fact, there's so many new billionaires. You know where they are? China has more billionaires now. Russia has billionaires. They're all going to go Italian. I'm sure they're going to go Italian. That is, you'll sell a lot of products to them and maybe find out what else you could make for them and bring them over here as tourists.
Let's all make products for the billionaires. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's definitely a strategy for sure.
And then are there opportunities in specific sectors? So have you done anything to improve the health sector, the education sector? Look at the gift you gave us in education. Isn't it the Montessori method? It's Montessori from Italy. My daughters all grew up with Montessori, and it's a fabulous way to get an education as a child. So what else can you do for us in improving education, getting more people? And energy, we're all hoping to find new ways to get good energy, solar and wind and so on. We were told recently, my wife and I, that we should solarize our home, and we'll end up at much lower cost than buying electricity from the public company. And we could even sell extra energy from having a solar roof and the battery coming from this company that there's this famous man, Elon Musk.
Oh, God.
Who created the Tesla car. He is building
Did he create it, or did he buy the patent from the people who created it?
The world's biggest factory for making batteries, not only for his car, but for your home. You're going to have a battery at home to supply energy at much less money to you than you are spending now.
Other big sectors I think he's leaving out here are real estate, any kind of sort of science stuff like pharmacy, biotech. And there was one more that my brain just completely escaped, but those two I remembered. But there's some other pretty big industries too, right? That we could look at and say like, okay, like are there new opportunities in these? Oh, insurance. I think like real estate and insurance collectively in the US here, because we're such a service-based economy, are a certain percentage of our economic revenue. Editing Nicole will see if she can find some stats showing this, but um, there might be some big sectors in Italy related to the economy um, that they could add in here. But yeah, sort of biotech, pharmaceutical, real estate, and sort of insurancy kind of banking kind of products. Those are big sectors in our economy right now. So yeah, what new opportunities exist there?
Okay. Now, if someone says we don't have any more new innovations, no, what else could we do? We're at the end of innovations. Well, the digital wallet is another way to call the iPhone or a smartphone. But
A digital wallet is something associated with a smartphone, but I don't think it's like equivalent to the object. You can store payment information, and so your smartphone can function in addition to being able to make calls, access the internet, and whatever to make payments or accept payments.
by the way, now we have digital watches. I don't know if it's going to be successful because all of us have watches anyways.
Oh, I think he's talking about the the Apple Watch. I think that's what he's talking about here. And when did the Apple Watch come out? Just looking up that really quick. Looks like the Apple Watch came out in April of 2015. So this talk is likely from 2015. That movie came out in 2014. The Apple Watch came out in April of 2015. And it sounds like it's relatively new. So maybe this talk was from 2015.
But Apple is busy making a digital car.
We haven't seen any evidence of that in the future, have we? So I don't know what happened to that project, but
The next big car may come from Apple. I even suspect Amazon may go into the car business.
nah. Amazon will go into the information business. They make a ton of money off of leasing their servers and stuff. I don't know. I don't think Amazon is getting into producing products. I think that their model is distribution, and I think their model is maybe some informational or digital assets, but I don't think they're going to get into manufacturing anything, to be honest.
Zip cars. Zip cars is the idea of I don't have to own a car. When I need one, I just go and pay for it by the hour. It would mean that in Milan, there are several places where several cars are sitting, and you phone to reserve the car and use it. In New York City, no one wants to own a car. I don't think in Milano, maybe a lot of people may not want to own a car. The big thing happening there are the cars being supplied by private people with their own car. This whole new development that the taxi companies are upset with. Who would think that some people who own their own car will drive you somewhere and you pay them, much less than for a taxi, and some people who have an extra room in their home will rent their room in the home. This is called the shared economy.
And now, obviously, what Airbnb has turned into is sort of like vacation rentals. When I first started doing Airbnb, we literally rented the spare bedroom of our house. Like we kind of started when Airbnb meant that. I obviously don't do Airbnb anymore, but when we were doing that almost 10 years ago, like that's what it was. And now it's turned into people want like their own private home, and maybe they want, you know, maybe there's a chef there. Maybe it includes some amenities like, if it's by a beach, there's some kayaks that you can use or whatever. So people are sort of expecting a more luxury experience versus renting someone's room. And I think it's a little bit of a shame because I think that sort of using space efficiently was a good idea, but it sort of has become something else and now has ruined a lot of rental markets, sadly. So, but I used Airbnb for its original purpose, which was sharing a room in the house as a way to make some extra money.
It's a new development.
Oh, and we were the cheapest thing too, because I remember This poor guy, he was sleeping in his car because he was trying to go on vacation in Bar Harbor but couldn't afford anything. And when we listed our Airbnb, I forgot, I think we were charging like $50 a night or something. It was just enough to like make doing the laundry and changing the sheets worth it. He was like, "Oh my God, I haven't, I've been sleeping in my car." And he came in and he was just so grateful to have like a shower and a bed. Like that's the kind of thing you want to do, right? I don't know. It's just too bad that sometimes something starts off as an idea and it kind of morphs into something else that's a little bit less desirable. But anyway, RIP what Airbnb used to be.
That if you have any asset, you could price it. For example, let's say you live in a community and you have a very good lawnmower to cut the grass. Why should every neighbor have a lawnmower? One has it and the others rent it from the neighbor. So this is a whole new idea. There's a woman, I'm trying to remember her name. She's on YouTube. She is the person who spreads the gospel of the shared economy.
I wish you could think of her name because I'd like to learn more about her.
Yes, Uber and Airbnb. This whole idea of the single serve coffee maker, who would ever think coffee would be and have new blood in it, a new life? But when I was in Paris, I remember how many people were going to the Nestle shop. It was like it was a bookstore. It was so popular. They were going to buy some kind of something that serves one cup of coffee at a time. You put in the little pellet and you choose your types of coffee.
Nescafe.
So now Kidzania you've not heard of. You should hear about it. You should look it up. It was created by my former student who was always trying to say, what could we do for kids? Well, there's Disneyland, right? Oh, all the kids want to go to Disneyland, but he had this idea. Disneyland is only fun. Why don't we take our young people seriously and give them an experience that their father is having who's working in an industry? So Kidzania is so exciting. It's now, there's 12 Kidzanias in the world. 2 are in Japan, 1 is in Thailand, 1 is in Mexico, 1 is coming to Chicago. He buys up some land. He puts buildings on the land. There's a ticketing system. And each child is brought by the parent, and the child says what he wants to be. One of them says, I want to be a pilot. So he goes to the section where there's actually a plane, part of a plane, and there's the dials, and he's getting an experience of what a pilot experiences. Another one says, I'd like to be the mayor of a city, because Kidzania is a city. Another one says, I'd like to run a supermarket. So there is a supermarket with things to sell in it and shelves. So for the first time, it's fun and it's educational.
So I just looked up because I was like, I'd never heard of this. It apparently does still exist, and the only one here in the US is in Dallas, according to their corporate website. I have not deep dove to see, like, okay, does it actually exist? But apparently this is a thing, and apparently there is one in the US right now, according to the internet.
The kids learn that what adults are doing. They are doctors. One kid says, I want to be a brain surgeon. So he goes into
pretending to work is apparently not as fun as going to Disneyland. Shocker.
There's a room with a patient who's about to be operated on. It's a dummy, of course. So Kidzania should come to Italy. I think you would just love to invite them to open up Kidzania here. IBM's Watson. Do you remember hearing that there was a quiz show and they had the best quiz people?
There is no Kidmania in Italy. Just checked, in case you were curious.
Ones who won many times against the IBM machine. So a question would be asked, who wrote the book Gone with the Wind? And of course, these very professional, smart people knew too, but it was answered faster by IBM. IBM's data covered everything that could be asked. And not only that, the machine predicts the probability that the answer is correct. And IBM beat the world's best informed people. And by the way, that happened earlier. IBM beat Garry Kasparov, the world's chess master. I had the chance of riding the car with Garry Kasparov because we were in a program together. So we're going back to the hotel, and I said to Garry, "Do you have time to play a game of chess?" I knew I'd be defeated. He says, "Oh, no time, sorry." So I never played a game with him. I would have lost in the first 5 moves probably. But IBM beat him. But IBM is not the winner now. A German software program beat IBM's. So the winners of chess is no longer people. It's the software. Who has the better software? So here's what IBM is working on. It's a fantastic idea. Someone has a terrible problem, maybe some kind of cancer. So that person will go to this doctor, get the opinion, maybe check with a second opinion doctor, or could go to IBM, which is preparing the following. For that cancer, IBM has collected all the information in the world of all the people who had that cancer. And
so this is, now we're in ChatGPT world, and so you can kind of see where it was starting here.
all
Probably
the treatments that were used, let's say there were 3 treatments, and the probability of success of each of those treatments. So a doctor no longer has to know what is the best treatment. IBM has put together the information that the doctor goes to get about what treatment is the best for that patient. Fantastic, fantastic. So to say that there aren't new things in the world would be a mistake. There is even a case where someone wrote a book called Free and illustrated how you could use the idea that my product is free to get new customers and then turn it into a premium level where you now give even more after they became dependent on that free service. I think you'll see this when you're using things in the internet that you could always buy, even though it's free, you could get it at a higher level.
Yeah, most software companies have a freemium model where like you can try part of it for free or have a free time period for which to try it out, and then after that you can buy it. I think that's pretty common. I think it was really pretty common at this time too, but maybe not.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah, let's. All right, guys. So if you're seeing this, you know what this means. Part 2 coming next week. This is a long one, so I knew it was going to be at least 2 parts. And yeah, so I hope that you stick around. And if you like this video, I hope you consider subscribing to the channel. If you have other marketing gurus you want me to talk about, obviously feel free to leave them as a comment, or you can fill out the contact form on my website to reach me more anonymously. If you want to lightly keep in touch, we have a monthly email newsletter. You can see samples of it on our website, actually at that URL. You can also sign up there if you like what you see. And thanks for considering subscribing, trying to monetize the YouTube channel. So appreciate you in contributing to that. Everybody counts at this point because we're a small channel here. So thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day and see you next time. Take care.